Let's get right into it. In this explainer, we are unpacking the hardcore neurophysiology of how acoustic waves actually physically manipulate your autonomic nervous system and your sleep architecture. We're going way beyond your standard relaxation playlists here to uncover the precise biophysics of sound therapy. Get ready, because we're exploring how everything from cellular metabolic clearance and mitochondrial energetics to targeted brainwave entrainment can literally be optimized through the physics of sound.
So let's start with a really provocative question, one that completely challenges the sort of mystical narrative around sound healing and grounds the whole thing in biophysics. Can precise acoustic frequencies bypass our conscious mind to biologically rewire our nervous system? The short answer? Yes, absolutely. But the truly fascinating part is exactly how it happens at the cellular and neurological levels, how it shifts us out of a state of chronic stress and into profound systemic cellular repair.
At the very core of this biological rewiring is what we call your sympatho-vagal balance. Basically, your autonomic nervous system exists in this highly synchronized reciprocal state. When you're under chronic stress, you get a hyperactivation of the sympathetic branch. Now, as an evolutionary survival mechanism, this fight-or-flight response intentionally bathes your entire system in cortisol to mobilize energy. It literally keeps your brain stuck in high-frequency beta waves so you can scan for threats. But to initiate healing, metabolic clearance, and immune regulation, we have to actively stimulate the opposing side, the parasympathetic branch, which is driven largely by the vagus nerve.
Chapter 1. The Autonomic Sleep Architecture. To really understand how we can intervene, we first have to map out the electrophysiological architecture of human sleep, specifically looking at the ultimate biological reset button, slow-wave sleep. As you transition from alert wakefulness down into non-rapid eye movement, or NREM sleep, your brain starts generating these high-amplitude, low-frequency delta oscillations, somewhere between 0.5 and 4 Hz. During this phase, your parasympathetic nervous system completely takes over cardiovascular homeostasis. Your heart rate drops, peripheral vascular resistance decreases, and crucially, these delta waves trigger the brain's glymphatic system. Your neurons literally shrink. This allows cerebral spinal fluid to just wash away neurotoxic waste like amyloid beta, clearing out the metabolic byproducts of your day and completely restoring your mitochondrial energetics.
Chapter 2. Mechanics of Brainwave Entrainment.
Now, moving into the actual physics of how external stimuli interact with our cortical neurons, we find something called the frequency-following response. Through this incredible biophysical process, populations of cortical neurons literally phase-lock their electrical firing rates to the rhythm of an external sound. So you aren't just passively listening to a beat. Your brain is physically synchronizing to it. It's actively dragging your neural networks out of a stressed, high-frequency states and pulling them down into restorative alpha, theta, or delta bands.
But we have to make a critical distinction here. You've probably heard of binaural beats, right? Well, they actually rely on a phantom, headphone-dependent illusion. They send a slightly different frequency to each ear to force the brain to internally synthesize a phantom third beat. Isochronic tones, on the other hand, are single tones switched rapidly on and off. And because they are real, physical acoustic pulses, they generate a much stronger evoked neural response. Plus, they don't even require headphones to physically impact your neural networks.
Chapter 3. Engineering deep, slow-wave sleep. Listen to this number, 81.9%. That is the positive finding rate for pink noise when it comes to improving sleep outcomes. It completely dwarfs the 33% rate you get for white noise. You see, unlike the harsh, high-frequency static of white noise, pink noise actually mimics the spectral density of natural environments. Think of rushing water or wind blowing through the trees. This specifically signals evolutionary safety to your autonomic nervous system. It reduces the complexity of shifting brainwave activity and eases the brain right down toward deeper, much more restorative stages of sleep.
However, we have to acknowledge the scientific nuance here, and frankly, the limits of biohacking. Continuous noise can actually deprive the auditory system of much-needed downtime, which impairs your next-day creative insight. So, just leaving an open-loop pink noise track running at maximum volume all night long? Not biologically optimal. Research cautions that it can actually restrict your initial N1 sleep stage and systematically suppress your REM cycles. And we need REM. It's absolutely vital for emotional processing, neuroplasticity, and abstract pattern detection.
So how do we bypass those limitations? Scientists use closed-loop auditory stimulation. It is a brilliant causal chain right from the cochlea to deep neocortical coupling. Using real-time EEG, algorithms literally track the positive upstate of your cortical slow oscillations, which is typically around 0.5 to 1 Hz.
The system waits and then fires a 50-millisecond pulse of pink noise exactly at the peak of that up state. This bottom-up pathway travels straight from the brainstem up to the hippocampus, enhancing what we call sharp-wave ripples. This tightens the synchronization between the hippocampus and the neocortex, literally locking in your long-term memory and actively preventing age-related cognitive decline while you're fast asleep.
Chapter 4. Vagal Stimulation via Acoustic Resonance.
Acoustic resonance basically acts as a multi-channel vagal nerve stimulator, and it does this through 5 simultaneous physiological pathways. First, the auricular pathway directly hits Arnold's nerve in your ear with high-pressure acoustic waves, firing signals straight into the brainstem. Then, the middle ear filters out background noise to signal safety. Third, respiratory entrainment down-regulates the HPA axis, which lowers your cortisol. Fourth, the vibrotactile pathway utilizes mechanoreceptors right in your skin to suppress pain in the somosensory cortex. And finally, if you add vocal toning, the laryngeal pathway boosts endogenous nitric oxide, which heavily supports your cardiovascular system. It is literally a full-system physiological override.
And looking at the hard data, highly controlled studies confirm significant, measurable drops in physiological stress markers. We aren't just talking about a subjective feeling of relaxation here. We are seeing real biometric shifts. Therapy with these complex overtones significantly boosts heart rate variability metrics, specifically SDNN and RMSSD. That means your nervous system is becoming highly resilient and adaptable to stress. On top of that, it decreases hyperaroused neuroelectric alpha power and measurably suppresses stress hormones like salivary alpha amylase and cortisol.
Chapter 5. Physiological Risks and Clinical Realities.
Now, for the sake of scientific rigor, we have to critically evaluate the risks. It's time to shed the myth that all sound therapy is universally harmless. The sheer physical force of sound pressure can act as an executive distraction or trigger real side effects if basic safety guidelines are ignored. For some people, the artificial phase locking of cortical networks disrupts dynamic brain activity. It can actually impair standardized intelligence test performance. Why? Because it artificially forces the brain into a rigid rhythm, stripping away the dynamic neuroplastic flexibility you need for complex problem solving. Oh, and high-pitched crystal bowls played way too loudly? They can aggravate or even induce temporary tinnitus. Keeping with that ultimate scientific integrity, there are absolute contraindications that clinicians have to screen for. Frequencies under 10 Hz can actually trigger hypersynchronous electrical discharges in patients with epilepsy. Patients with active psychosis can experience a severe surfacing of trauma because their psychological defenses are lowered. If you have an implanted pacemaker or electronic device, the powerful magnetic fields and mechanical vibrations of direct contact singing bowls can cause the device to malfunction. And intense low-frequency vibroacoustic therapy is strictly avoided during the first trimester of pregnancy just due to unknown impacts on early cellular division.
I'm going to leave you with this final thought and invite you to reconsider the profound, measurable impact that the physics of sound holds for the future of our longevity. As we continue to decode exactly how frequency, amplitude, and resonance can hack our autonomic nervous system, powerfully enhance lymphatic clearance, and deepen our restorative slow-wave sleep, could precision acoustics become the ultimate, non-invasive standard for human optimization? Thank you for exploring the truly awe-inspiring science of sound with me in this explainer.